this something?
I missed that. What was that question?
I think you muted yourself, Carrie.
I'm sorry. I'm having a bad technological day. I apologize. Are we set to go on TV20 and YouTube?
On YouTube, yes, not TV20, just YouTube.
Great. All right, great. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Madam Clerk, and to the members for joining the operations call today. Madam Clerk, do we need to call roll on this?
Yeah. You want me to call?
Yes, Alan will call the roll.
Thank you.
McCormick,
Present.
Griffin.
Here.
Jones,
Joe
Kelly.
Jones is here.
Zone. You have a quorum.
You have a quorum,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Well, today we have I'm going to read off the agenda items for today. And I know that, Clerk, you've got some stuff to work through too on personnel. So do I need to also read the disclaimer for the, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Clerk, do you have that in front of you that you can read? I don't have that in front of me.
Oh, I do not. We can get it. Can you pull it up?
Want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I got it right on my desk here. Okay. This operations committee is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by Sub House Bill 197. This meeting is being held using the Zoom platform, is being live streamed on YouTube TV, and it can also be seen on Cleveland City Council website and from our Facebook page. In accordance with Ohio's open meetings regulations as amended by Sub House Bill 197, notice of this committee was publicly posted.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman or Mr. President, for doing that. So, all right. So our agenda for today is number one, employee approval. We have a list of folks that the clerk has submitted for approval to be reinstated, I would guess, as employees of City Council. After that, we'll be presented with the council office reopening plan and suggestions from the clerk. This should have been sent out to everybody. I received it, and hopefully the folks on this call did as well. If you've got a question or comment, please use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom, and we'll be happy to work folks in. So with that said, Madam Clerk, can you please present the employee approval recommendations that you sent over?
Yes. Aaron Conroy, Ward 17, Executive Assistant. Molly Ferris, Ward 12, Executive Assistant. Imani Golphin, Ward 9, Executive Assistant. Morangeles Miranda, Ward 14, Executive Assistant. Levita Parker, Ward 6, Executive Assistant. Veronica Sales, Ward 7, Executive Assistant. Bakita Stiggers, Chief Financial Officer. Ann Tilley, Research and Policy Analyst. Erica Walker-Smith, Ward 1, Executive Assistant.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, it looks like we've got a mostly executive assistants plus our CFO and research and policy analyst to be on the list here. So the executive assistants, I would imagine, are mostly at the purview of the member and their requests. So I don't see any objections there as well.
Mr. Chairman, technically all employees, including executive assistants, are hired by the full council. Now, obviously, when it comes to selecting the executive assistants, the individual council members, are the person that does that.
Right.
But it is still the obligation of the entire body to actually hire.
Okay.
Some of
Thank
these
you.
people have been executive assistants for some years, but this is our usual way that we do this is not very often, but when we get a good list, we like to do it. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Deputy Clerk. So, Madam Chair, have we received any objections from any members about these executive assistant placements?
not at all.
Okay, I'll open it up to the committee first on the executive assistant assignments. Are there any comments or feedback from the executive assistant placements for wards 17, 12, 9, 14, 6, 7, and 1?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. President.
I recommend advancing all the names to the full council. I do want to put, one of the executive assistants is a second cousin of mine. And I want to talk to Rachel before I vote. So if we take a vote on it today, I'd like to abstain from that or recuse myself on Aaron Conroy.
Okay.
But otherwise, I recommend everybody going forward. And I will seek advice on whether I can vote with the council.
Okay, so we will be advancing these today. So Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, can we note Council President's, do you want to just recuse yourself on that, Council Pres, just to be
Yes,
safe?
please. Yes,
Okay,
please.
so Madam Clerk, can we note his recusal when we go to a vote on this?
So noted.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, I keep calling you Madam Chair. Clerk, for purposes of transparency, I'm going to ask, Vakita, would you mind stepping out of the room as we discuss you? I don't expect any big issues, but I think it's probably just proper as we discuss the next two. If you could please excuse yourself. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So the other two folks that are not executive assistants, I see you, Joe Jones. We'll get to you in 1 second. Executive assistants would be Ann Tilley and Vakita Stiggers, who is our Chief Financial Officer, Ann Tilley, who is our Research and Policy Analyst. From my perspective, these two folks have done a good job in addressing both the research as well as the compliance and finance aspects of council, as well as adapting to these tough times that we're all in. With that, I will take feedback on Vakita Stiggers and Ann Tilley. Joe Jones, go ahead and unmute yourself, Joe. I've got you.
Yeah, just trying to understand these are what are we doing here with this? I mean, I'm sorry, I just didn't get. I don't have anything in terms of an agenda on these items and what this purpose is. Can you just elaborate?
Absolutely. So, Councilman Jones, excuse me. So I'll just read the brief that Alan sent over. So Section 31 of the Charter of the
Alan
City of
sent you a
Cleveland.
brief?
Yes, so
Yes,
he sent us
correct.
a brief yesterday, right?
Did Alan
So-
Dreyer send us? He sent us a brief yesterday.
That's right.
Can you please go get that brief? God doggone goodness!
Okay.
I
So,
just need you to just call him and follow up the phone call. That's it.
Um,
All right. So here's.
So just quickly here, so I can read this brief out. So Section 31 of the Charter of the City of Cleveland says that the council shall choose employees of its own body as are necessary. And Rule 12.1 of the Rules of Council say that the recommendation for hiring will come through the Clerk of Council to the Operations Committee. So Clerk Britt has put forth these names, both those executive assistants that we read off earlier, as well as Ms. Stiggers and Tilley. So we are entertaining as a committee today the names that Clerk Britt has put forth to be retained by council. So that is where we are at right now. Councilman Jones, did you, let's see.
So just
Go
for
ahead.
clarification, the people, the names, these names, because I heard you say Ward 1, who's in Ward 1? Who we're talking about?
We've got, Councilman Jones, we've got Erica Walker Smith.
Okay, so these are the people that we're just saying we're going to retain them on in the existing positions, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, no unreadiness, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other comments on either the executive assistants or our chief financial officer or our research and policy analyst? Hearing none, we will then take a vote on retaining the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members put forth by the clerk. Alan, can you call the roll on this, please? I think you guys are muted. So how do we unmute? Clerk, can you unmute yourself? Sorry, we kicked Makita out. Sorry.
Hey, just a question real quick. Where
Yeah.
does Aaron Conroy work at? I don't recall meeting Aaron Conroy.
Councilman, she is the executive assistant for Ward 17, Councilman Slife.
Okay. That works. I just didn't know, and I guess we haven't been down there a lot, so that was a name I didn't recognize. I usually know the assistants.
That's right. That's right. All righty. Okay. So if the office clerk can unmute yourself and please call the roll.
McCory,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
JoJo, Kelly.
I'm here, Mr. President, Madam Clerk.
Either yes with recusal on Aaron
Recusal on Aaron
Conroy,
Conroy.
recusal on the whole slate.
So it'll just be recusal on it.
So,
I'm a
Madam
yes.
Clerk, so Joe Jones is a yes, and Madam Clerk, for the council president, is he recusing himself on the whole slate or just the one name?
Just the one name.
Wonderful.
So it's 4 yeas on everybody and, except for Aaron Conroy and 1 recusal.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this slate of names is then approved and will be sent to the entire council. All righty. Great. Okay. So congratulations to those employees who retained employment. And Vakita, congratulations. We had to kick you out for that one, but thank you all for your really, and thank you for your hard work. I mean, all of our folks in city council, executive assistants and staff have done a tremendous job in adapting to these tough times. So we appreciate your work, and we know that you're in public service. So, you could probably be making a whole bunch more money somewhere else, but you do it because you care, and we appreciate that. So thank you. All right. So our next item on the list is our council office reopening plan. And we'll be reviewing recommendations on this. Alan, this was sent out to everybody. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So,
I don't, Mr. Chairman,
yes, please.
I don't have that information. Nor do I have the information he sent the other day. I've had my assistant work on it. It would probably be nice when we put these agendas out for the operation committee that we put the information along with it, so there won't be no confusion.
Okay.
Because I got my young lady looking on it, and it would have came up under Alan. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, yesterday. It said it yesterday, and as well as last
Alan
week.
Dreyer. It would have been coming under Alan Dreyer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I got something now, so I see it. I see it now. It
Wonderful.
came yesterday.
Okay. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, are you going to be presenting this plan, or are you going to be having someone else do that for you?
Actually, it is, what we were just hoping for was a discussion on the kind of things that, it was the research cluster that worked on these things. They looked at what other cities were doing. They looked at what our city was doing. They looked at best practices and then came up with sort of categories of ways to come back in. And so I was really just hoping for a discussion.
Great.
Obviously, we can't do all of these things, but there are things that we are in process of doing and can talk about all those.
Great. So, to the Madam Clerk, what I'll do too is if everyone's got this in front of you, we can kind of just go through it and discuss current procedures as well as future procedures as well. But Madam Clerk, I would imagine at this time, council will follow the, prescribed guidelines by the state of Ohio and the mayor's emergency response. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we look at the summary recommendations, this is draft 3 of October 2020. That's the designation of a liaison to the human, to HR, and keeping track of council employees sent home. It's the maintenance of maintaining our city council hearings via Zoom, like we're doing now. Continuing to limit visitors to city council offices. As a note, we've got all of the contact information for those offices posted externally on the doors of council. And then continuing to discourage attending meetings outside of City Hall. So really promoting the Zoom platform. Madam Clerk, maybe too, when we think about making sure all members are aware, of their access to Zoom, whether that be a council account or the fact that, they can use, their accounts to pay for a Zoom account, making sure folks are aware of that. I've been doing that, but, we want to make sure reminding folks that they can access that.
Absolutely, and Vakita has done that. Most members and staff that have asked, I believe it is a one-time fee of $161 a year, and members of council are reimbursed for purchasing their own Zoom account. We pretty much keep this Zoom account strictly for committee and council meetings, which is why we encourage everybody else to get one for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
again, just Councilman Griffin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was trying to do the raised hand. I just want full disclosure. I have not asked for reimbursement for Zoom account. And I want to make sure we get clarification, and this may take a legal opinion. One of the things that I think is evident is that a lot of people will use their Zoom account for also political purposes if they're doing private meetings. So I would caution all of my colleagues to make sure that they recognize the separation. And that's the reason why I made a conscious decision not to ask for reimbursement, because I think we should make sure that we give council guidance on making sure that if they do purchase a Zoom account through their expense account, then it should only be utilized for city business and council business only, not political business.
That's a very good point, Councilman Griffin. And I also have not expensed the account because I also use it for, other stuff as well. So that's a great point. Clerk, can we make sure that as is everything, whether it be a cell phone or, council property that is only for a proper public purpose and official council business. So if we could just reiterate that to folks on council, that applies to a Zoom account if it's expensed. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So also looking at employees, the same standards, the health standards that have been in place around the requirement for a face covering, folks staying in their office space unless they're using the restroom, getting lunch, washing their hands, or picking up copies. Those that are working from home should continue and only report to the office as needed. And that has been spelled out by the clerk and her staff as to who those folks are. As well as maintaining, the only folks in their office should be them. I see a councilman, I'll get you in 1 second. And then the summer internship program, this is now, of course, outdated, was one that is remote. So do we have any questions on employee safety while in the office, or those who should not be, or those who should or should not be in the office? Councilman Griffin, I got you, saw your hand first, so jump in, please.
Clarification on employees working outside of City Hall. Because of City Hall's shutdown and because of the availability of really our small teams, which is pretty much just me and Levita, there are assignments and things that she has done remotely and have done things to come out to the community to work, to do things because of the limited hours at City Hall. I got questions about, are we putting stipulations on employee availability to work outside of City Hall, or is this just a recommendation and a discouragement? But I don't want any ambiguity that some employees say, well, I'm told not to work outside of City Hall, but at the same time, I'm asked by the council person to perform assignments outside of City Hall.
Sure. Go ahead, clerk.
I was just going to say, just first of all, these are really just recommendations. And as a committee, you all can decide, we can decide what makes the most sense. So I believe that those practices, those were like best practices that the research cluster listed on this. So it is up to us to make that decision. So it's an excellent point, because I believe the point is to try to minimize your exposure to the virus. And so I believe that's why research listed.
And just to let you know, just talking me personally and thinking through this, I've minimized my availability to go to City Hall to be very limited, and really try to let Levita do most of the things at City Hall. However, there are times that we have to connect at Fair Hill Partners, which is where I have a remote office, and you know, things that we do because it's only us two that really have to manage all of the affairs of the ward. So I would really recommend on not being so stringent, because even though she and I have a very good partnership in how we move and we work together, we don't want to constrain other council people who may want their assistant to work at their ward office, which is paid by public taxpayer dollars or other things. So just my thoughts, and you guys can chime in.
Yeah, Councilman, I appreciate that. And I think too, that as has always been, with other members, some members don't have their assistants in City Hall ever because they're permanently in the ward office. So I think that, I'll just speak for myself. My assistant, while she will make trips to City Hall for certain purposes, we got her set up with, calls and computer from home. And so she is doing all of our work, her work from home right now. Again, making trips here and there into City Hall, just because of the reducing the risk of exposure. So I would imagine, I think it should be an expectation that the member and the assistant are working normal business hours, whether that be from home or a ward office, or, if they are, I think that should be a uniform expectation, but exactly how they get that done, I think there should be some flexibility with that due to the virus. Councilman Jones, I see you, but right before we get to you, Madam Clerk, do you have any feedback on that?
I was going to say that particularly during the time of COVID, it would be very difficult for a member of council and their EA to be in the office at the same time. As a matter of fact, when City Hall installed all of the plexiglass barriers, they can't really do them in the council offices because of ingress and egress issues. And there's just no distance. There's not enough distance. So I don't believe there's any way before there's a vaccination for members and their EAs to be in the office at the same time. I think this was just trying to limit your exposure outside of City Hall. But your point is well taken, Councilman Griffin.
Yeah.
Sometimes it has to be that way. And your ward office, you're in a building that is full of other people. But my guess is they are taking precautions as well. So.
Absolutely. And I would just note for any viewing public, so they have a better understanding, our council offices are one room, a very small room, that are shared between a member and their assistant. So that's the background on why that would be difficult from a public health perspective. They're very small offices. So thank you for that. Councilman Jones. All right, we got you. You're muted, Councilman Jones. So sorry about that. You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I've been looking here at the summary. I presume that this is, where we've been since June. Are we talking about continuing the same criteria that we have here that's been drafted in front of us?
That's the discussion today. Yes.
Okay. And so then the next question is just, I guess for me, in terms of concerns for services, one of the things that I know that we've had a lot of requests for, and we've been unable to do so. I know we've made other alternatives as dealing with with proclamations and resolutions and stuff like that, because it seems like the virus has gotten worse, unfortunately, due to this Republican Party and the Republican president who believes that there should be herd mentality. They have 250,000 people dead at their hands, and they don't have nothing. They're not doing anything to protect the citizens now. It's just like each man is for himself. So given the fact that it is far worse now than it has ever been in our country, the issue would be, how do we retrofit some of our people's homes to start doing some of the work that we need to have? Because it doesn't make sense to even start talking about opening back up our offices when it's far worse and the medical facilities are overran. There was a young man who got sick here. They don't even have a hospital bed for him now. So, and that's here, just got this coming through the doorway this morning from one of the employees who work in our facilities. And so it's really serious. And I don't know, I guess my suggestion would be, Mr. Chairman, what can we do now to have operations more housed in some of our people's homes to handle some of those things that we need to have done, like resolutions and certificates, because the state legislature, which is Republican, they got a full branded operation. Every time I go and deal with various different events or have to be in attendance, they always have their resolutions and proclamations done. Will we be able to get some system of operation in place?
Thank you, Councilman. I'll ask the clerk to respond to two questions there. The first one is, can you just give a review? If a member or their assistant is looking for equipment for public purpose only, whether that be a computer, a phone line, can you review, just generally, what is it, what can a member expense if they're looking to enhance a home office, for example, to make it so that their assistant or themselves can work properly? And then the second question would be to respond to the question around resolutions and condolences.
Well, the first question, and I'll share some of this, some of the weight of this response with our Chief Finance Officer. We do have tablets that we've been giving to executive assistants and staff that don't have a proper computer, which will allow them to work better remotely. I believe the same thing with phones, city phones that are issued. Can you all hear?
Yep.
Okay. And so, and as long as it is a proper public purpose, an EA or a member of council can be reimbursed. I can go specifically into the resolution part. So Tiffany came up with a one-page resolution of condolence and a resolution of acknowledgement. This was specifically during, when we thought COVID was bad, which it really is bad now. And she sent it to each member of council. It has the council seal, and it has a small part of the letter can be modified to each circumstance. We have envelopes here so that it's not folded, but we don't have frames. So we can't always provide the same kind of resolution or scroll that we've been doing. We just can't do that during COVID. But we do have these two letters that each member of council received from Tiffany that you can print off your printer and present that. There are some circumstances where we have given Charlene and Ronnie a Surface tablet so that they can draft from home and then come into the office on Tuesdays and Wednesdays to print out for special resolutions.
Madam Clerk, so essentially, if we're breaking this down, And I'd request too if we could resend those resolutions and back to the body as a reminder. So, Madam Clerk, if it is a, I don't know, an everyday type of thing, you're suggesting to use those formats. If it's a, more notable event or a larger, more, important situation, that they can reach out to have something done that's done on a more infrequent basis. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. Because the letters that Tiffany did are they're the closest at your disposal. And you can use those, print them off. And we have envelopes here in the office that you can take with you so that this doesn't have to be folded.
Okay.
But that's an excellent characterization. That's exactly what we're asking.
All righty. Councilman Jones, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, Mr. Chairman. So I appreciate that, but it's not official. It's official, but it's not official looking. And so that was the reason why I posed the question, getting back to some kind of normalcy in terms of operations. So I guess, is the process too arduous or too difficult to have someone have a system set up in their office, and that's what I mean, at their home, and they're pumping that out?
Yes, the answer is yes. It's, first of all, we can't purchase the kind of equipment that they would need for their home use. We're just prohibited in doing that. And secondly, they still, because we can't purchase that kind of equipment at their homes, they can draft something at their home, but they still have to come into the office in order to print it out.
Thank you. So Council, Madam Clerk, then if Councilman Jones had a special event and would like to request that, he would do that through Charlene. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Councilman Jones.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, so as we move along this document as well, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you can read it yourself around the continued purchase of soap and protective equipment and sanitizer for the entire office, as well as our continued communication around COVID. Madam Clerk, just to reassure folks, we've been getting great updates from the research cluster on COVID. The question would be, will those continue?
Absolutely, they will. Ann Tilley is responsible for sending out a summary of the governor's press conferences, and John James is responsible for summarizing the mayor's information on COVID and what City Hall and the city of Cleveland are doing to combat COVID.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So just a couple more points, and then I'll open it up to the floor to, I'm sorry, Councilman Griffin, go ahead. I've got your hand here.
On that point, is it a reason we have to get 3 different reports? Are we redundant? I'm okay if that's what everybody needs, but it looks kind of redundant and the information is very similar. So I would just caution us that sometimes it's a better use of staff time if we just, maybe collapse everything into one report, and also maybe have more information that we get from the health department, local health department, so that we are really able to get that information. It's just something that I thought of, but just a question to you guys.
So
Sure.
John James started doing, I asked John to start doing the summaries of the straight from City Hall pieces, because there were sometimes it's so long,
Yeah.
there are pieces in there specific to council that you've got to read down so far in order to even see it. So, but if it is, and it is redundant, it can be redundant. So if that's something that we want to discontinue, that would be fine. It's just that the report that comes from, if there are things in there that are specific to council, I try to have him bring that out. And maybe it's just having John James then just look for what's specific to council and then report that out as opposed to summarizing all of the report.
And I think that might be good. And the reason why is because I found myself reading the health department's report, and Tilly's report, John James' report, and the state report by being chair of the health department. And it would only be like literally one or two things, items that I need to pull out that are specific to council. But it's just a thought. You know, I can live with it if you guys want to keep it the same, if you think it's necessary, but that's up to your call, Mr. Chair.
And John James walked in,
John James heard his name being called there. So there you go. So Councilman, it's a duly noted point. And I think I know in the beginning we assigned the 2 staff members to really holistically look at what is the governor saying, what is, what are the national trends, what's going on locally, and summarize those for members so that there's a concise kind of recap of what the different levels of government and agencies are saying. So maybe we can take a look at, and John is here in the room, and John, thank you for all your great work with Ann Tilly on these summaries. So maybe we can revisit if we're feeling like a lot of this data and information is now being shared across platforms and redundant, maybe we can revisit how we bullet this out or how we summarize it. Go ahead, Councilman Griffin.
Well, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. It's not a hill that I have to die on. But what I will tell you is that, I'm very interested in what our specifics are coming out of the health department. For example, when I looked at it yesterday and couldn't pull the information out, that's critical that we get that out to our citizens because it specifically focuses on Cleveland. And the numbers in Cleveland are climbing. If we look at all 4 of those reports, we'll literally have to glean all of the information from all of the different 4 reports. And it could be time consuming at times. But I'm good either way. I've kind of learned my own system, but I just wanted to just make sure we have the best use of staff time because I know that our staff is also overwhelmed at times too.
Thank you, Councilman. Clerk, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Councilman Griffin, as chair of health, do you think that the health department can just send us a report, maybe the same report they send to the mayor's side? We just don't get it separately. It comes in the mayor's report. So that's why we include it.
I'll check on that and see. But, Mr. Chair, I don't want to waste too much time in your meeting on that. We could keep it the same, but I will check with the health department to see if they can make that adjustment. If they can't make that adjustment, I think it would help all of us tremendously.
Yeah, and I think that the idea too being a concise summary, to me, I see real value in that. So couple points on here's what the governor's side, here's what our local, I do find, value in that summary. I've got Councilman Griffin, if you're wrapped up, I've got Councilman Jones, go ahead. My friend, you are muted again. Councilman Jones. You are unmuted.
Well, thank you so much. I got distracted. Please forgive me. Here's what I'm thinking about, right? And many of you who are my colleagues know how significant and serious this issue is to me. And from the very initial conversations we had concerning it, it is a threat. It has proven itself to be very deadly. And my suggestions would be, I'm not opposed to a number of reports because, somebody might slip up and get it wrong. And so then you have another 2 reports that you can, weigh up against. But if we were going to look to consolidate it, I don't know if we have someone on staff that can do that. But that's not my major concern. My major concern is how we handle it as a city. We should be out front as a city on this issue. We haven't done that. We have seen that the Republicans will do whatever they want to do. I don't even think we should even be listening to them. and their failed leadership on this issue is epic, and it is destroying our economy here locally and all across this entire nation. And so I think that we should take some steps. I don't know if this is the venue for it, but at least I want to voice it. That we should be talking about how we isolate the city of Cleveland, how we begin the process to start taking the matter into our own hands, the best of our ability, getting tracers and tracking the people, understanding these hospitals. I know that we have a number of forums. I've been on some of them already about the significance of the hospital beds and how they're filling up. All of these things, we have 17 members of Cleveland City Council. We should formulate our own task force. So if that means that the health committee needs to get on front of this, we're leaders, and that's what we should do. We should be leading this issue in our territory. I think that we need to look at all available capacity and data that we got. We need to turn a part of our government towards that direction. And we need to see what we can do here in our own territory, because right now we are in a fight for our lives here on the local level, and the national level has showed us that they don't care about this particular subject matter. And given, unfortunately, the great divide in our country, and a president who is refusing to get out of office, a president who is looking to change the military to start a civil war in this country, all his moves are directed towards that direction. I think that cities, and he's even said it, democratic states and cities, he's trying to divide this country. So on this particular subject matter, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we should have some kind of convened meeting to talk about how we protect our citizens in the city of Cleveland, because the state of Ohio's governor has ceded the issue, and he is not going to do anything. He's going to fall in line with his party, and they believe in herd immunity. I don't even know where to begin to tell you how devastating that is, herd immunity. Even to talk about it is saying we give up on this. So, this is serious, and I don't want to be in a dark winter coming into next year when these numbers are way off the scale here. So I think that we have a chance. I don't think that the war on this issue is lost. It's just going to have to take some brave Democrats to step up to the table and provide the leadership necessary and start making an issue out of this more forcefully than what has been done in the past.
Thank you, Councilman. Completely understood. And I think that is something that I'm sure while he's on the camera with us, Councilman Griffin and myself, I'm the vice chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. So we can talk about getting another update on that as well. I mean, the chair is the boss there, but we can definitely convene that. I appreciate that, Councilman. And I think one thing that I'd like to just throw out there too is, and this might be something for the cluster, but I think it's important. And Councilman Jones, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but should we be also looking at the presidential transition work and I know that they've got a coronavirus task force. So having our research staff just follow that, because obviously within a couple months, they will be taking it over. So I think that might be a worthy effort just to follow that and to pull out any notable information that comes out of that as well, because they will be leading it in a few short, it feels like a lifetime months coming up here. So thank you.
Sorry, who's going to be leading that, Mr. Chairman?
So the presidential transition committee, I'm not quite sure who's leading that, but it's the, President-elect Biden's staff and the transition committee. They've assigned a committee specifically to COVID that they've been putting out public information on. So our research staff, we can ask them to follow the work of that committee at the national level to better understand what their priorities are and what they're going to be putting in place when President-elect Biden takes office on January 20th.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess I think that's a great suggestion, and I'm praying and hoping that this president, who has been the most unconventional president in the history of the United States of America, I am concerned about him ceding power, and I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that I don't know if we can put together a resolution here for the health of our nation and certainly the city, and pushing him on. Please, do follow the laws of this nation. And that's the reason why we have these laws here. This council needs to be vocal. If we don't stand up and start talking about our abilities and capacity as a Democratic-led body, the Republicans have worked to try to attack us on several occasions, sleight of hand movements, and if we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But the issue is that we cannot sit back and be quiet and silent on these issues. We need to move forceful. We need to be straightforward with our agenda, and our agenda is simple. Following the rules of the land and the laws of this country and the laws of this state and the laws of this city. And we need to talk about how we deal with this pandemic. And we should put forth a resolution. I don't mind working with you to do that, that asks him to follow and obey the laws as the President of the United States of America, and to have a peaceful transition. Because right now, all the Republican leaders, all at the top, every single one of them yesterday has pretty much said that Biden is not the elect president.
Yeah.
So that is a serious crisis for our nation, and it's something that Democratic, allegedly, according to the Republicans, led cities need to really start standing up versus getting punched across the nose, not saying anything at all.
So
I think that we should be
heard loud and clear.
Dealing with the COVID virus.
We've got the council president on here now, who has registered that request for a resolution. I will just say that if this committee had purview over that, we'd be, a lot above our pay grade than we are now. But I'm confident. I'm confident that that national transition will happen. But your concerns, I share them. For purposes of the operations committee today, and making sure that we've got a clear message for staff of council on how we're going to be proceeding. I wanted to recap part of the conversation today, and Madam Chair, jump in if you hear anything that is off track, but we will be continuing the current operation into the near future until this committee or council decides to dramatically change our operation, including continuing to host council meetings via Zoom through our, the practice we've had through public notice, ensuring that those are accessible to the community. We will continue the health and safety precautions put in place, including face covering, sanitation, limiting employees in perspective to office space and conference rooms. We will also be continuing all of our precautions when it comes to use of public spaces, communal spaces within the council offices, as well as supporting members when it comes to getting them the equipment they need to work remotely, as well as maintaining the expectations of a full workday, but allowing the flexibility of assistants and members to work from home, ward offices as well. You've outlined the procedures for resolutions and condolences. I'm again requested that we resend that out to members, those guidelines. And we've also discussed the notification for members and information sharing, which we can loop back on to see if we want to revisit how we summarize the COVID information in the community, as well as a request for our research staff to pay attention to monitor the transition team's work to see if there's any notable information that we believe will impact cities across America that members should be aware of as well. Madam Clerk, just another question that I'll open up the floor to any add-ons. If a member of council or an assistant or other folks believe that, and this is under confirmed cases in the document, have come into contact with someone with a confirmed diagnosis, what is the process there? I'd imagine that is still a process through the Department of Public Health, but for the viewing public and for members and for their assistance.
Yes, any staff person or member that has been exposed to someone that has the virus should do exactly as the health regulations state by self-quarantining. I believe it's still 14 days, although there is some discussion that says 10 days might be sufficient as well. And Blaine, you may know more about that than I do, but clearly that person should self-quarantine. They should get a COVID test and then follow whatever instructions they're given medically. But they should not come into the work environment.
That's right. And I hopefully that's self-explanatory, but wanted to make sure that we repeat that as well. Councilman Griffin, did you have some feedback there?
The best practice that I've been getting in responses from the Cleveland Clinic, who I also get their updates, is that anybody who comes within 6 feet of somebody who has been exposed to COVID-19 is asked or recommended to quarantine, self-quarantine for 10 days. That is what has been recommended. And that's what I've been reading from the clinic and other best practices.
Thank you, Councilman. So, Madam Clerk, we will be continuing with only essential staff in the office and following the state and local guidelines on access to the building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All righty. So, with the exception of taking a look at our, how we summarize communication to members, as well as getting some of that information back out to members that we discussed today, we are going to be continuing on a very similar work pattern for employees. Is that correct?
That is correct as well.
All right. At this point, I'll open it up. Council Prez, any other members have questions on either number one, the employees that were reinstated today, or two, the COVID practices that we will be continuing with on council? Council Perez?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we, at a certain point, we should we'll let our members know, but we're looking to conclude council business on the 9th of December this year. And we should have everything, well wrapped up by then. And then we'll just have to, reassess, in January. And I'm assuming that January is going to be early as well. But if there is a vaccine, but I think we just have to stay status quo until minimum January.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, I would say given that we'll wrap up by December 9th, if we need to hold an operations committee, during the month of December for purposes of better understanding what the future, would there be an objection to that? No. Okay.
As needed. And we can even meet after the 9th as council if we don't get business done or we need to take care of something. It's just, we always try to schedule that. This is a weird year, but I don't know how, with the, the holidays coming up, we usually try to break at the very beginning of December. So that's where
Thank you.
We'll come back to the first, I guess it'll be the first Wednesday after the new year.
Great. So then we will just reserve the right to call an operations committee to update members if, on any new adjustments that come. Madam Clerk, the only other question I have, and then again, I'll open it back up to the floor, is around newsletters. Is there a cutoff for newsletters for members that may want to send a newsletter for the holidays or otherwise?
You know what? I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Let me talk with our Chief of Communications, Joan Mazzolini, and then I'll let everyone know.
Wonderful. Yeah, if we could communicate that out to members. So, all right, I'm going to open up the floor again. We're wrapping up this hour. Are there any other questions about the staffing plan right now or anything for the operations committee?
Two things that first doesn't need a decision today, because I think we stay with the cadence that we're on through the end of the year. Wednesdays, since Wednesdays become our council day during COVID, it's also cabinet day. Should we consider in January switching to Tuesdays as our council day for the good of the order? So that's a consideration.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have any inherent issue with that. I think that.
Yeah, and we can give people enough notice now that beginning in January, so people can adjust their calendars accordingly. Because right now, I think everybody is in the habit and the cadence of blocking off every other Wednesday. But this way, this gives people plenty of opportunity. There won't be cabinet first thing in the morning, and would probably be a better way to go.
Okay.
Clarification.
Yep, Councilman Jones, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. President, Cleveland City Council. So I just want to make sure I understand that right. So instead of having committee meetings or assignments on Wednesday, we'll book them up on those Mondays and Tuesdays? Is that what I'm hearing, or am I?
Yes,
I'm not hearing.
with the only caveat is we got to think through, we'd have to do some adjustment because development planning sustainability normally meets on Tuesdays and they meet frequently. So we'd have to do a couple other adjustments, but in terms of getting all of the directors there, it would probably be best to do it on a Tuesday. So no final decision to be made. We'd have to work things out, but I just want to put that as an agenda item to follow up on. Councilman Brancatelli meets almost every Tuesday, so we would have to find a slot for that. But when we're in our normal session, you know, the directors are never late. They're kind of there and prepared. Now I'm going through and calling and waiting and having to mess the order up with the legislation. So it's, you know, nothing we can't survive if Wednesday ends up being the best day. But I just want to think about considering another day for the council meetings.
And I think Council President, every other week, you know, that's another thing. I think it's worked really well during the summer. Do you view that as something that we would continue, or would we go back to a weekly schedule?
I think we kind of play by ear. We've done good from March. Well, I guess we started in June. So I guess these all have been summer meetings and into the fall. I would say we would do, my gut would tell me without just having a conversation, without making a decision, that we stay to every other or as needed. Because we've gotten the big glut of legislation started down, but I would say we kind of stick to that for now. Every other or as needed would be my recommendation.
Great. Okay. What other items do we have for the good of the order, or any feedback on the two major items presented today?
Can you update me on the two major items that were on today?
Councilman Zone, hey there, I didn't see you join. Welcome. So, Councilman Zone, the two items that we discussed today were, number one, reinstating staff members. We had, I believe, 7 executive assistants that that the committee voted to reinstate, and then 2 staff members, one being Vakita and then Ann Tilley. We asked Vakita to step out of the room while we discussed those 2 positions. The committee voted, with the exception of 1 abstention, to reinstate the 7 EAs, as well as our CFO and our policy analyst, Ann Tilley. So that was item number 1. Item number 2, we reviewed the work from home or work policy during COVID for council, which has included, you know, the safety precautions that have been in place in our offices, everything from mask mandate to the plexiglass that's been put up, to regulations around how many people can be in an office, as well as the communal spaces, to ensuring that we have things like the hand sanitizer and other safety precautions put in place. We also discussed the ability for both EAs as well as other staff to have the flexibility to work from home, as well as the resources to members either to reimburse office expenses at home or to access a tablet for EAs or members so that they can perform their duties from home. And the committee recommended or has advanced without objection, continuing those general guidelines, allowing for folks to, you know, work from home or to have that flexibility, understanding the fact that there's the expectation, of course, to work your full workday, as well as, you know, if you need time off, to request that formally and to continue to follow those procedures, but to have the flexibility to maintain the current COVID-based work from home environment. So those are a quick summation.
Got it. Okay. Certainly no objection to the item number 1 on the agenda. Staff does a great job. And I'm glad you're thinking about the protocol. I will say I've received a lot of communication over the last week from public safety forces some of it anonymously from EMS. We have a couple firefighters who are out now with COVID. We have police officers who are out with COVID, a couple EMTs, and they're concerned about now the mayor bringing people back. They're essential employees, but you'll be dealing with that issue, Blaine.
Yeah, and just with Councilman Zone, that's a good point too, for the viewing public, because we're live too. You know, the council operations committee is just for city council. I think I should have mentioned that in the beginning. It's not for the entire city as a whole. It's just for purposes of members of city council and staff.
Right.
But that's 100% Councilman Zone. Good point. And I think that's why it's appropriate for us as a body to continue the ability for folks to work from home and ensure that those safety practices are put in place.
I'll follow up with you, Councilman Griffin. Thank you, Chairman. I'll follow up with you, Councilman Griffin, to share kind of what I've heard.
Sure. I've been getting feedback on that as well, so appreciate that.
Absolutely. All righty. Council President.
Just one more quick item. To the clerk, Pat, do we have enough information to consider the Black Lives Matter street renaming that Councilman Bashir Jones submitted?
What I have is the application and the bio, but I don't have petition.
He told me that the petition, it's not a residential area where he is, there aren't residents on the area that he's talking about doing the renaming. I think I have it right here. It would be.
I can check, Mr. President. If there are no petitions required, then I definitely can check.
Okay.
I think that it's his second, and as it states in the guidelines, you all get 2 every term. I believe that would be his second one.
Okay, so it'd be Decker from 79th to 82nd is the request to change to Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Black Lives Matter, or Black Lives Matter Way would be the request. So I guess the question then would be if all of the procedural, if all the paperwork is turned in, is the committee, would the committee consent to forwarding this to the council if all the paperwork becomes in order?
Mr. President,
I was just going to say I can forward that to Chairman McCormack.
Yep. I don't have any objections off the top of it. Clerk, just send that over to us, and then we can circulate that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment on this point. The only thing the commission or the committee might want to consider is, since there's a finite period of time that these honorary secondary designations go up, would it preclude, if the city leaders so chose in the future, to do another designation? I mean, once you have it established in one location of the city, you're not going to, it would be like saying Joe Smith Way in 55th and St. Clair, and you want to do a Joe Smith Way in another part of our city. You couldn't do that. So just something to consider.
It's a good point.
And also, I want you guys to consider, and I don't want to, create any shockwaves, but we really need to closely examine that we are walking into a free speech issue. And when we made the Black Lives Matter mural on the street in East 93rd, we did it amidst a civil emergency. So there are a little bit of a difference between the processes and procedures you have to go through when you're dealing with a civil emergency, where the mayor can expedite certain things compared to where we're not in a civil emergency. So keep that in mind as well as you also have free speech issues where other groups may want to start to explore doing this as well. And we want to make sure that we closely monitor that to make sure that we're not encouraging some of the wrong messages to be sent.
Appreciate that. Mr. President, on that point, this is a prerogative of council though, right? To rename a street. Right. So that would have to come through a member.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
So, all right. Anything else for the good of the order before we close out?
This is my last official operations committee meeting. For those of you who aren't aware, next Wednesday will be my last council meeting. So it's an honor to serve the citizens, and particularly I appreciate the opportunity to serve on the operations committee. This committee does a lot of important work behind the scenes that really is foundational for the success of not only the council, but our city. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank Council President Kelly for giving me this appointment and serving with to my colleagues. I appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you, Councilman Zone, and we will. I think we've got an opportunity coming up in the next week to shed some more love on you. But I will just say that you've always, on this committee and others as well, but specifically for this committee, have brought up points that I haven't thought of, or others, and that tracks with your ability to be insightful and to see around the bend, and that's been no different on this committee. So I think Councilman Jones has a love letter for you too. Councilman Jones, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, it's absolutely a love letter. And oftentimes in the past, when I sat with some of the older ones at that time on the council 20 some years ago, Zone wasn't there, but they talked about, they may not like one another, some of the members, but they would always give recognition where recognition is due. And they would say at that time that he is a great council person. He's done a good job for his community. And so in that spirit and vein, I think there's only two people on this Zoom here that was here when Matt Zone came in as the council person. I was one of them. And Pat Britt is now the council clerk, and she was a council person at the time. So I ushered him in and showed him around the National League of Cities, and God blessed him to become the leader. So I'm excited about that, his success in his community, and bringing over $1 billion and transforming his entire neighborhood. He's an exceptional leader, and he's done a fantastic job in his community. And I'm sad that he's leaving the city council, but I understand it. God has allowed for him to have a new chapter in his life, a new door he's walking into. And I send my sentiments. May God bless you. May he keep you. May he shine favor upon your head. May you be successful in your leadership position, in your new spot, and may you zoom straight to the top as you have had and as you have done in your community, and making this city proud and representing the National League of Cities, the world operation of elected officials in the United States. So congratulations, my friend. May God continue to bless you.
Thank you, Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chair, only thing I want to say is that we should keep them handy, because I've never seen anybody that knows the rules of council and Robert's Rules of Order better than Matt Zone. So I'm gonna keep him on standby, because he definitely knows procedures, protocols, and he's the chair when he's the chair. When he got the gavel, he's the chair.
One traffic cop.
We get a chance to show some love next time.
It's like I don't have glasses near me, but it's like when he's sitting there and the glasses come off and he starts to chew on them and he looks at you and he looks at you. When the glasses come off and he starts to chew on the corner, then you're in it for something. That's all I know. All right. Anything else for the good of the order before we wrap this operations committee?
Hey, Mr. President, can you and I follow up just about next Wednesday?
Yep, I'll give you a call.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye now.